Nobody noticed her, and that was exactly the problem. She was just a waitress. Young, quiet, always standing a little apart from the rest of the staff. The kind of person your eyes slide right past without stopping. But on one ordinary Tuesday evening, in one of the most expensive restaurants in the city, this girl did something so simple and so rare that it made a billionaire break down in front of everyone. This is the story of Maya, and what she did in about 3 minutes changed her life completely. The restaurant was called Harlow's. If you've never heard of it, just picture the kind of place where the chairs cost more than your rent. The menu has no prices, and the waitstaff smile even when they want to cry. It was the kind of restaurant where rich people came to be seen, not necessarily to eat. Maya had been working there for 8 months. She was 23, paid her own rent, sent money home to her mom every month, and still somehow showed up to every shift on time. She wasn't the fastest server. She wasn't the loudest personality on the floor, but she remembered things. What table 7 ordered last week? Which guest liked extra lemon? Small details that most people don't bother to hold on to. That Tuesday, a reservation came in under the name Hartwell. Richard Hartwell. If you looked him up, you'd find pages and pages. A self-made billionaire, founder of a logistics company worth somewhere around $4 billion, on the cover of Forbes twice, known for being sharp, cold, and extremely private. His staff called him demanding. The press called him brilliant. People who'd worked with him for years said they'd never once seen him laugh. He arrived at 7 p.m. with his mother, Eleanor. Eleanor Hartwell was in her late 70s. Silver hair, elegant posture, pearl earrings. She looked like someone who had once been the most striking person in every room she entered. But the second Maya saw her, she noticed something the other staff hadn't bothered to pick up on. Eleanor wasn't talking. Not to the waiter who greeted them. Not to her son when he spoke to her directly. She sat with her hands folded in her lap and watched everything with quiet, patient eyes. Richard would lean toward her, say something, and she would nod or shake her head, but she never responded in words. Eleanor Hartwell was deaf, not hard of hearing, profoundly, completely deaf, and nobody on that floor, not the manager, not the senior staff, not a single person, was doing anything about it. Here's where it gets interesting. Maya had grown up with a younger brother named Daniel. Daniel was born deaf, so from the time Maya was about 7 years old, her family learned sign language together. Not because they had to, but because Daniel deserved to be included in every conversation at that dinner table. Maya had been signing for 16 years. It was as natural to her as breathing. She watched Eleanor for a few minutes from across the room, watched how the older woman sat a little too still, how her eyes moved slowly around the restaurant, taking everything in because the sound of it was closed off to her, how she reached once for the menu and then set it back down without ordering, waiting for her son to do it for her. Maya felt something shift in her chest. She walked over to the table. Richard looked up, slightly annoyed, the way powerful people look when they expect to be interrupted with something unimportant. Maya smiled at him, then turned to Eleanor, and she signed. Simple, clear signs. Hello, my name is Maya. I'm your server tonight. What would you like to drink? Eleanor Hartwell went completely still. For a second, nothing happened. Then her eyes, those quiet, patient eyes, filled with tears, not sad tears, something else. The kind of tears that come when you've been invisible for a long time and someone suddenly looks right at you. She signed back. Her hands were a little stiff, the way hands get when a skill hasn't been used in a while. But she signed, and Maya understood every word. Eleanor said she hadn't been spoken to directly in a restaurant by a stranger in over 40 years. 40 years. Think about that for a second. 40 years of sitting at tables while other people ordered for her. 40 years of smiling and nodding while conversations happened around her. 40 years of being present in a room and still somehow being invisible. And this 23-year-old waitress in 8 seconds gave her something that 4 decades of fancy dinners never had. Richard Hartwell, the cold, private, never-laughs billionaire, was watching all of this from 2 feet away. His jaw was tight. His eyes were bright. He pressed his fingers to his mouth and looked away for a moment. And when he looked back, he was crying, not dramatically, just quietly, the way people cry when they've been holding something in for a very long time. He'd spent his whole life building something enormous. Companies, wealth, power. And in all that time, with all those resources, he had never once thought to hire a sign language interpreter for dinner. Not because he didn't love his mother, but because it had just become normal. She would manage. She always managed. Watching Maya talk to her made him realize manage is not the same as belong. Maya spent extra time at that table. She didn't rush them. She described the specials to Eleanor in sign language, asked her preferences, checked in through the meal. At one point, Eleanor laughed, actually laughed out loud, at something. Maya signed to her, and the whole table next to them turned to look because the sound was so warm and unexpected. By the end of the night, Eleanor had ordered her own food, expressed her own opinions, and complained about the lighting being too dim, all in sign language, all through Maya. When Richard asked for the check, he also asked to speak to the manager. The manager, a man named Patrick, came over looking slightly nervous, the way managers do when a billionaire asks for them. Richard didn't complain. He pointed at Maya and said, "This woman gave my mother a voice tonight. I want you to know what that means." Patrick didn't fully understand what had happened, but he nodded. Richard left a tip that was larger than Maya's monthly salary. But here's the part that actually matters. 3 weeks later, Maya got a call. Richard Hartwell's company was launching a new initiative, a hospitality training program focused on accessibility and inclusive service. They wanted someone to help design the communication and sign language component of that program, someone who understood it not just technically but personally. They wanted Maya. She took the job, not because the money was better, though it was, not because it was glamorous. It wasn't at first. She took it because for the first time in her working life, something she had always carried inside her, something she had learned at a kitchen table with her little brother, was suddenly exactly what the world needed. Daniel, her brother, flew in to see her on her first day. He signed to her, "You always made me feel like I was worth talking to." She signed back, "You taught me how." There's a study from Gallup that found only 1 in 3 employees feel their strengths are used every day at work. 1 in 3, which means most people are walking around with something powerful inside them. A skill, a story, a lived experience. And the place they spend most of their waking hours has no idea it even exists. Maya's story isn't really about sign language. It's about the quiet things we carry, the things we learned not in a classroom but at a kitchen table, at 3 in the morning, in the middle of someone else's hard time. Those things have weight. They have worth. The world just doesn't always know where to look. If this story hit you somewhere real, you're not done yet. Watch the next one already playing on your screen.